Live. So today we're talking about Shroud, which I've got a little bit of the teaser vid going on here in the background. And I know there's a lot of people excited to talk through Shroud, and I'm just trying to figure out why, because I kind of liked all the other ones we went through. So what's the big deal here?
Where to begin? I
I
mean,
mean,
people like the cool and the mysterious, yeah? Like, it's probably the simplest way to explain it.
definitely, and there's like an unknown factor, like you said, the mysterious. When we first introduced their story, it was empty. Essentially, it was just like you know, wait and see kind of thing. And even still, where their powers come from, what they can do, the full extent of it, it's all very nebulous. And then from a gameplay perspective, for me, I'm a very control heavy player. And if you want to like equate it to Magic, it's probably close to like a blue or black sort of scenario. And that really appeals to me because I don't know, I like to like draw things out and sort of dangle victory in front of my opponent. So yeah, Shroud all the way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
there's
like
a
a
lot.
non-team perspective, just as a fan, like Shroud is what I selected as my parallel back in the day. Even though I'm also a big fan of Markolian, and I feel like my vibe on Shroud is like they're one big psyop. It seems like they just seem to me from the outside that there's a lot of deception-based components because of how they came to be. But I'm wondering, like as I say that, does that sound like right, or how did you think about them as like a parallel as you were building them, or maybe like from the lore perspective?
Sorry, I'm getting harassed here on the side about not mentioning things, but yeah, how did we think about it from the lore perspective? I mean, right? I hate to use it. It's kind of like the Marvel cop out when it comes to things like Silver Surfer or whatever. It's just like, oh, the power cosmic, you can just do whatever. But their story is basically that they left Earth on a generation ship, um, out into deep space, or at least that was their intention. And somewhere along the way, they got sucked into a black hole. Nobody knows what happened in that black hole, and then got popped out the other end, completely changed. But the interesting thing for them is that although thousands and thousands of years have progressed since they left Earth and since the whole, evolution of mankind, or the four other various evolutions of mankind, for them, no time has passed. So they think they just went into this black hole, had an experience, and then got popped out the other end. And so from a lore perspective, it gives us a lot of opportunity to play with a lot of things. I mean, we've really tried to focus on grounding a lot of the technology and future elements of the game in a sort of pseudo reality, some sort of plausibility. But I think more so than any other parallel, the Shroud gives us some room to play with that, because like, who knows when your entire perception or understanding of time and space is warped, what you can do. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, very cool. I like love the mystery around them, and so they are properly named Shroud. There is that shroud of mystery around it. That's cool.
Yeah, I think there's a couple cool elements within the Shroud that I really like. I mean, the mystery is the most obvious. I think that there's a clear sabotage type of an element here. We have cards like Spider Drone, which sort of look like they are specifically intended to go break your ship, and cut your wires and do all those kind of things. And so, watching from the shadows and manipulating, events, right? So specifically being able to sort of disable or disarm what your enemy is doing. And I think that thematically fits the control style as well. There's also the religious zealotry, right? They are sort of fanatics, and that's why Neve, who is their leader, is sort of also their religious leader, and they worship whatever this dark entity was that they talked to on the other side of the singularity, and it comes through in the art and the lore, because you have the stewards who are, they sort of look like priests, right? And that's all very intentional because it's of all the factions seems to be the most strongly sort of religious, and I think those are elements that come through really well in the art, really well in the flavor text, and it makes the Shroud interesting to me from a story perspective. What would this religious zealotry lead them to do? So, that things like that will be explored in greater detail.
I just like them too because everyone calls them the emo parallel. So I'm down for that. If any parallel is screaming infidelities, it's them. So I'm all for that.
Yeah, hey, Rebel, I always appreciate your perspective. Is Shroud one that you are less comfortable with, or that you just hate, and you're voicing that with silence? Or I'm curious to hear that.
I used to identify most with Shroud before I joined the team, actually, and before I sort of gained a deeper appreciation for the other parallels. So I think even in Discord, I probably am still aligned with Shroud there. I think it's sort of like the easy, cool parallel, at least initially, and then I definitely identify and appreciate what Fitch said about sort of their religious sort of zealotry background, because I've always found that sort of angle really interesting in storytelling. So I think that is a really cool sort of direction that Shroud is sort of headed narratively. But yeah, in terms of my personal association with Shroud, I think I'm a little bit cooler on them than I used to be. I still like them, but I kind of like all the parallels. So except Earthen, dirty Earthen.
Yeah, we don't like Earthen. I mean, I feel like Shroud started very cool, right?
I like Earthen just fine. I just don't like their play style in the game.
Slander. I hope our CEO is listening right now.
Oh yeah,
he's gonna have some words about that. But I mean, I think the Shroud started off as the coolest, right? They've always been the most popular parallel, I think, and or they've been very close if they weren't at the very beginning. I think Marcolian might have had an edge at the very, very beginning of parallel, if I remember correctly, and then Shroud has carried it ever since. And it's understandable. I mean, they're that dark, mysterious thing, but aesthetically are really, really cool as well. I put them right up there with Cathari as kind of the most aesthetically interesting parallel. You have cards which we'll actually see a little bit more of, like Void Touched, Novice. There's so many cards that are just energy sort of blowing into or out of a thing, or some portal, or view into another dimension. And I think those things are really, really fascinating visually, and so people are drawn to that. And the dark aesthetic overall is that's a thing that works in sci-fi, right? So we know it works. It's not entirely surprising that it works in this situation.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ali. I know you had really liked the Earthen as from a just lore and vibe. I know you got the chance to build the deck and play, which we'll see later. But I'm wondering, maybe after reviewing Earthen, Cathari, and Shroud, just from a vibes perspective, how did you feel about Shroud?
Honestly, I'm pretty split between Earthen and Shroud, and I still cannot decide. I was talking in the Discord this morning, and they're like, "You have to pick," and I'm like, "I can't choose." I don't know. I mean, I think the Earthen plays on the solar punk part of me that I really love. That's technology and stuff like that. But I feel like Shroud is very dark fantasy that is very cool, and bringing up concepts like the singularity. I mean, that just sounds, I don't know, interesting. And I feel like it's also the parallel, as you were saying earlier, that there's a lot of design space because when you go into a black hole, anything can happen, right? And I don't know, what did they learn on the other side? I personally really, really love the theme, so I get that it's sort of the cool one, but maybe it's the cool one for good reason. So sort of where I'm at with it.
It's confirmed. The entire stream is into bad boys. Except for you,
Koji,
Shroud.
Koji speaking as a former bad boy here, I think.
Oh my God, I
little
am
bad.
as far from bad boy these days as you can possibly get. My God,
I know, former.
I'm so
former,
soft.
Former
Just
can be
neutral
underscored
at the
there.
end of the day.
Yeah.
Retired bad boy.
I mean, the last thing I'll say is that like of all the factions, there's the least known, I would think, about them. And, in great storytelling, there has to be an element of mystery. There's got to be like really important unknowns, right? All great stories have this. And I think that Shroud are one of the most important sources. Like, you alluded to, Ali, like, what is that dark entity? What did it do? Did they talk to it? Is like, what is the nature of the power that was bestowed? What is its mission? What does it want out of them? So where is this heading? Like, we just don't know.
And also, I feel like it's very existential, which I think is very cool. Like, if, I don't know, Cathari is about clones and Earth is about, nature and stuff like that, Marcolian technology or whatever, like they're very physical things, and Shroud is like, we're getting deep, like on the big questions of the universe and stuff like that. So I feel like that's why I feel attached to it.
Nice. Yeah, and so I think I love that, and sorry, I've got a baby in the background for everyone, so these live things can be a little tricky. So I got to watch you play Koji, and I think people are really excited. I'm really excited to watch this gameplay as just a longtime fan of what the Parallel team has been doing. And so I'm wondering, like, just from like the deck perspective, I know like the lore is fascinating, but this is kind of your first chance to get in there and really play with the decks versus just kind of talk about it. I'm wondering if you can kind of give everyone a little insight into what it was like to turn it from a like speculative deck build and then go run from the deck.
So the deck that I played, it definitely, I can see how it would be annoying to play against. There's a bounce cards back to opponent's hand. So like in Hearthstone, if you're familiar with SAP, like there's just some irritating things, or you're banishing a lot of stuff. If you're banishing it to the singularity, like you can call it back instead of your opponent finding a way to get it. There's a card called Demolecularize, which is banish all units to your singularity, which is just cool. So again, you can be pulling from your singularity and your opponent can't. There's just cool answers, I would say. Like I said, playing a little bit more in the control style, which is what I like, as opposed to maybe like flooding the board. And it was pretty neat to get my hands on some cards, and I'm looking forward to theory crafting some more in the future.
Yeah, I get a very edgy, mysterious, like definitely makes sense for this to be banished deck and play style.
For sure. Oh, there's another one that I forgot to. Dark Allure, which is take control of an enemy unit along with any upgrades it has. Like, that's just annoying. Yoinking your opponent's stuff and with upgrades on it. So it kind of reminds me of Priest a little bit in Hearthstone too, if anyone's watching. That's but fun for the person that's playing it, for sure.
Yeah, it's Shroud is one of those. I mean, and for the record, when we played, we were playing the starter deck, so we didn't really get a full chance to sort of theory craft the heck out of some of the stuff. But Shroud is one of those parallels that has less units than the other parallels, and so like you said, they kind of have to rely on control. They can't go as wide as some of the other parallels are able to, and it has, by necessity, has to be a bit more of a let me take away from you sort of strategy, as opposed to let me just like fill the board full of threats.
Yeah, Ali, is there a paragon for Shroud that you're gravitating towards most, from this limited experience that you've had and just a little bit of theory crafting, or are you still kind of, undecided what you think you'll play with?
I'm still undecided, but when I took a look initially, I did think that Neve was pretty cool, just because, okay, I'm a mage player in Hearthstone. There's like lots of cards that cast random things. It's good for content creation because you never know what's going to happen. And I can't remember the exact wording of Eve's. I'll pull it up right here. But at the end, let's see. The muster ability says for each effect, relic, or upgrade you've played this game, play a random unit from any parallel with the same cost. So it's sort of one of those things where this is going to hit the board, and what's it going to be? Some players really, really hate that style, and I feel like if it's in competition, it feels a little worse, right? Because you don't really want randomness kind of deciding things. But I feel like that's a healthy amount of randomness and will provide some interesting gameplay. So that's the one that I initially felt connected to, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's my favorite deck to play as well. So one thing to note, like if you are playing Neve, there is a sort of cost cap on those things, so you can't just drop a bunch of like 8 or 9 cost stuff and then generate the strongest units. But if you are extra crafty, you can do things like play Scanner Probe or some other cards that allow you to steal from your opponent's deck and play their more expensive cards, and that's when the real fun sort of gets going.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I didn't think to do that. But yeah, keeping everything 5 and below like at its base feels like it's a good way to balance it. So when it does hit the board, it's not like the most ridiculous things, right? No.
Yeah, Rebel, maybe we want to talk through the other Paragons as well, and what are the appeals to that playstyle? We have New Dawn, we have Brand, very different, I would say, those two Paragons, and in terms of what they're trying to do. So maybe talk us through, those two and where you find yourself going if you're not playing Neve. Where do you end up sort of playing the most?
I'm not a huge Neve fan personally. I thought that I would be, and I played her a few times in the beginning, but I really miss playing expensive cards. The one that Ali mentioned earlier, Demolecularize, is like a big reason to play Shroud, in my opinion, and not being able to play that feels bad. So I also don't have a ton of play experience with the New Dawn, which I know a lot of the playtesters really like. But the Shroud decks that I gravitate towards are generally like more on the like super hard control side, where it's just like I'm not going to let my opponent do anything. Basically every removable card that Shroud has access to, plus Brand, who's just like a fairly efficient unit, and there's a benefit to banishing your opponent's stuff. His passive ability lets you look at the top card of your deck when you banish something, and then either keep it on top or put it on the bottom. So in a control deck like that, that's basically trying to answer all of your opponent's threats, it lets you sort of dig for those answers when you need them, which is really nice. Typically at the win condition of the deck is a card called Leonid, which if I remember correctly is like a pretty beefy unit, and then also at the end of your turn lets you steal something from your opponent basically every turn that it stays alive. And then the other win condition, which is probably my favorite Shroud card actually, just because I think the concept of it is so cool, is Sacred Destruction, which it costs 6 and it lets you banish, or it's not banish, it's just destroy an enemy unit, which is not the best rate for destroying an enemy unit. Annihilate does the same exact thing for 4, I think now. But if you've played 3 in a game, you get to summon, I think it's Bella, Wielder of Destruction, and that card is a beast and basically just helps you win the game on the spot. So the idea of a deck like that is just to keep control of the board, cycle through your the top card of your deck until you find your 3 sort of Sacred Destructions, and keep your opponent from going too crazy and overwhelming you, so you can play those 3 cards and then just kind of win off of the back of the giant monster that you summon.
Yeah, our very own Control Exodia.
Yeah.
Koji, thoughts on that as well? Any thoughts on New Dawn specifically, or you end up deploying?
So I used to play the New Dawn a lot actually, and basically its passive ability is both players play with the top card face up, and then the active ability is the New Dawn cannot be targeted by effects, and you can pay 1 energy to activate the New Dawn and banish it to your Singularity. At the start of your next turn, the New Dawn returns itself to the field, and you get to return a card from your singularity to your hand. So basically, it allows you to banish things and then selectively pick them back up, which is super helpful, especially if you're going to go with some of the stewards, because there's a card in the game that basically starts as a 2/2. When it dies, goes to the singularity, becomes a 4/4, and when that dies, it gets stronger. And something like the New Dawn helps you pull it out. Now, the only issue is, even while it can't be targeted by effects, it can still be destroyed. So you got to find a way to keep it alive to get value out of it. But I find that being able to selectively recall even 1 or 2 cards at the right moment can be crucial for a win. And then, of course, being able to see both what your next card is going to be and your opponent's next card is going to be as a control player, I think is like super helpful. I mean, obviously, it exposes information to your opponent. They know sort of what control elements you might be drawing, but at the same time, like, that could be good for you, because if they know you have an erasure, as an example, that might just stop them from playing threats, and then you just hold that. It's like a nuclear proliferation or something. Like, you just hold that there, being like, well, are you sure you want to play that strong card? Because I'm just gonna like nuke it off the field. And it's a bit of a sort of back and forward mind game, and I love that.
Yeah, do we want to kind of walk through some of the cards and the decks you guys have put together before we jump into some of the gameplay, and you can talk about strategy?
I think we can just dive straight into gameplay here.
Send it.
Let's send it. Let's give the
this
people.
This time around, we didn't actually craft a lot of decks, because like I said, when we played, Ali and I, we played with the starter decks. So yeah, probably best to just give the people what they came for.
Just eat it.
All right, let's
don't hold it more.
All right. So, but before Rich leads us in, this is like a pretty great big moment. So first, I definitely want to thank the Parallel guys for all the great work you've done. I know this is probably like some form of catharsis, getting it out there to everyone. So, great job to you guys, and thanks for trusting us and working with us. We love what you're doing. We want to support you and all Web3 games, and so being able to bring this live with Ali and you guys, it's really been great. And so we appreciate you trusting us with this. I know this is your baby, and we want to do it justice if we reveal it. But I want to hype it. I'm hyped. This is awesome. I'm stoked. It's a big moment for you. So congrats, and thanks for letting us be part of it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for working with us to do this. I also want to mention that, of course, because I'm the master of the caveat, but this is an alpha. So much of the UI and the gameplay and the UX is probably going to change, and it's all subject to change. So, what you see here will be very close to what the alpha experience will be, but past that experience, we do have a bunch of changes planned. So just keep that in mind. Take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I will also add, totally possible that there is and will be some quality loss, in the stream. So don't take these visuals as the exact resolution, the way things are going to look in the alpha. It's not. But with that said, it's really exciting to be able to actually show people a game of Parallel. And, I know that Ali and Koji had fun playing, and it was really fun to watch, and I'm excited to talk through it. So
cool.
I mean, this game we're about to show, I had less fun playing, so I don't know.
Yeah, this one somewhat less fun for you, but yeah.
Spoilers.
I'm going to hide us so that people can watch the full quality version of the game, and you guys can talk through what's happening. But we are still here, just you can't see us. We don't want to ruin the experience. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and if there's any moment you guys want me to pause it or stop to talk through something, let me know.
Sounds good. So yeah, Koji, we have a matchmaking screen here. It's not very exciting, but we are able to join players together, and that is neat in and of itself, I think.
That is exciting. Come on, don't play it.
Players can play together,
Ali's username exposed, you guys.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
It's all over.
Yeah, I don't think she was trying to hide it.
Add me. Be friends.
Okay, maybe we pause here. I think this is probably a screen worth pausing on. So, Koji, you want to talk us through what we're seeing here?
Oh, sure. So at the opening of the game, you draw a hand of 5 cards, and you have the chance to mulligan some of those cards. Basically, what that means is you can selectively choose which cards out of your hand you might want to pitch back in the deck and redraw for something else so that you can sort of better shape your hand. You get 1 opportunity at this. I'm not sure how many cards Ali mulliganed. I guess we'll see, but if any.
No, she's
Toss the
got
maybe.
1. She's just doing 1.
There
That's
you go.
bold.
It
That's
was a
bold.
pretty good mulligan.
Yeah, she had a pretty solid hand to start. So sometimes you're gonna scrap all 5. Sometimes you're gonna keep all 5. It's really dependent on what you get.
So probably a big thing to note, because this is, I think, Ali's actual probably first time playing the game, unless she played against the AI and I wasn't there. But it's going to be a bit of a learning curve when you first start, because the way that our mana system, energy system works, you have to take a card from your hand and put it into your bank, and kind of deciding which card to do that with can be a little bit difficult, because you have to decide, okay, is this going to be useful later or right now, or can I, pitch it for energy in hopes that I won't need it. Of course, there are cards that allow you to pull cards back from your bank, but those are few and far between.
That they are. So, Ali, you had played Engine Whisper there, right?
Yes. The effects you play cost 1 less energy.
Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit about why that was a card you wanted to get out onto the field.
Yeah, so I'm going to draw a lot of comparisons to Hearthstone because that's just my experience, but it's,
of course,
essentially like developing a sorcerer's apprentice, right? It's something that reduces the cost of your spells or your effects. So it makes your future future turn stronger because you can kind of mana cheat a little bit. Sadly, it got answered, but that's okay because I had a good follow-up.
Good stuff. So people are asking about sound in the chat. We will not have sound on this video. There are really cool sounds in the game. They're actually very satisfying, and everything feels very haptic. But we're not trying to give you 100% of the things to expect in the alpha right now. And also, it's easier for the sake of voiceover. So there will not be sound. Sorry.
Yeah, and for all those reasons that Ali mentioned, she wanted to play the Engine Whisperer. It's the same reason I played the Mercenary Gunslinger to destroy said Engine Whisperer, because I didn't want that advantage.
We talk a lot about that card, and this is a great example of its usefulness, because it has that 1 damage proc. So it comes out and it can give you a little bit of board presence and eliminate something that your opponent has played in the first turn or two, which ends up being a lot of situations that you want to do that.
Totally.
So a lot of trading here, guys. You're kind of doing a little jockeying for position.
Yeah, I think my biggest mistake was trying to out control a control deck, maybe. But I Mercenary Gunslinger, the sort of 1/1 for 1 that deals 1 damage, seems like such a boring, somewhat basic card, but it's amongst one of my most favorite to play. It just feels so good. Like the value is just there. I see Michael nodding along.
Very much nodding. Yeah, I love that card. One is like a breakpoint, a surprising amount of times in this game, and being able to just drop it on your opponent, kill something real quick, and still have a 1/1 that you can do other stuff with. Feels good, man.
Yeah. It's a staple. So Recon getting banked a lot. Rebel. I think you pointed out.
There are some cards that get banked fairly often these days, but
honestly, not a bad
card balance. I would expect to change quite a bit between now and when most people will play the game.
This is why the caveats, folks, because things can and will change. So, there are some cards that I would say their stats and effects are fairly baked in, and there's plenty that I think are much less baked in, and the average person's not going to really have any knowledge of that. You'll have a little bit more perspective on it when you play the game, but the caveats are always important.
All right,
So,
so
where are we at here?
yeah, Ali, we're on turn 4. You're on turn 4. After this, I'll take my turn 4. Any recollection of kind of what it felt like at this point in the game?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely thinking about like a little combo here because one of the tutus there gets buffed +1/+1 if you banish a unit. So, and then I've got a couple of cards like the other tutu. Sorry, I don't remember all the names. If you deal 1 damage and it kills it, it does banish. So right now I'm just trying, thinking or to think about like how do I get on board here and just kind of control your units. And I'm banking a lot of the expensive stuff, even though it might be nice later, but it's not worth it to have it sit in my hand if I'm gonna lose the board now. So that's where my head's at.
Solid.
Yeah, the entire time I was
what
playing.
do you got going here, Koji?
I just did my best to play as many units on curve as possible. I feel like that's probably the Cathari way. Someone like Shroud or Earthen can kind of hold units and play them a bit out of off tempo just because like they hold value at other times. But I think really, especially with this Paragon, in order to win with Cathari, I just have to like keep flooding the board and hope that that's basically my advantage. Unfortunately, I wasn't drawing the right units. And I also admittedly don't really know the Cathari starter deck all that well. So I wasn't sure what my win con was even going to be. I just thought maybe I could try and outpace Ali, but it really so far does not seem to be working very well.
Yeah, she's got a good advantage here. So you play Genetic Correction here, yes?
Yeah, I didn't. The card that Ali was just talking about, the Singularity Steward, I didn't want it to grow too large, and so I turned it into one of my units. Although that was a horrible misplay, because what I should have done is actually, if you want to pause it there for a second, that little like glowing white guy on the right hand side of the screen actually generates a token that has no ability, and I should have played that first. Let the token come and genetically corrected the unit into the token.
Into the token, I see. Yeah.
Because you'll notice later in game when I actually kill that unit on Ali's side of the board, it buffs all the rest of her units, and that's what I knew. Well, I mean spoilers, I guess, but that's when I knew I was toast.
Yeah, it goes back to something that we've talked about on these streams, the order of operations with trading card games and Parallel specifically. Is one of the things that I think takes the most getting used to, and it's possible for an experienced player like yourself to still make mistakes. I make that mistake regularly where I played a suboptimal order of things and could have gotten sometimes significantly more value, and that's something that you need to be paying attention to your turn, because if you're not, you will miss stuff like that. You may play the right card in the wrong order, and that happens with some frequency.
Oh,
Rest
for sure.
assured, chat, you will be able to order streamers a lot watching people play the game.
Oh, the amount of backseating that you'll probably get about which cards you banked and how they would have been helpful later is going to be off the charts, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, hey, so Ali, kind of along those, like what should have happened, was there anything kind of at this point, looking back, that you kind of left and like, I could have done this a little better, or I would have done this differently, or are you pretty happy with how you're running it up to this point?
Honestly, I feel like I'm pretty happy with the game so far. I feel like it was just fortunate that I had a lot of cards that deal 1 damage, and most of the units, Koji's units, were at 1 health. So I had the Life Siphon when I needed it. I had the Void Touch Novice, that kind of stuff. And if I had drawn a bit more expensive of things, it might have, the game would have run away from me. I'm sure there's some things I could have ordered better. I can't think of anything right now, but generally speaking, I feel like the game just kind of lined up pretty well for me.
Yeah, if people are having, by the way, see a couple of people in chat are having issues with stream quality. If you rewatch this after the fact, it should be substantially better. I think it's the live nature of it. And then we'll think about other formats that we potentially put out this gameplay video if it's appropriate to do so. And otherwise, a lot of people will be seeing the game firsthand without any need for video intervention quite soon. So.
One thing I will say though, and I've noticed myself doing in all of the games that I played here, is that I kind of forget about my Paragon. It's off on the side here. Like I think I could have potentially prioritized dropping that just here on turn 5. If I don't think I do. So I feel like it's sometimes easy to forget about your Paragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially early on in playtesting, that was a problem for a lot of us with sort of card game experience. The idea that a playable item exists outside of your hand is definitely something that requires some muscle memory to get used to, I think.
That's for sure.
I don't even want to watch this. This is just like
you're losing it quickly here. Yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, we're on which turn here again? Is this turn 6 or 7?
Yeah, I think it's Ali's 7 and my 6.
Yeah,
or will be my 7th.
She's got you down to 16 here. She's got good unit advantage here. What are you thinking at this point in the game in terms of how you can kind of salvage this?
I'm thinking I can't wait for the rematch where we both build our own decks and then face off against each other, because at this point I already knew it was gone. So one of the things that's really tough with the Cathari is that they don't have a traditional board wipe, and so the only thing that I was kind of hoping for that did actually come, but it was a little bit too little too late, was oh my god, Michael, you'll know the name of the card, the one that spawns the defenders. Why am I drawing a blank?
Oh, the Cathari card? Seeing Triple?
Oh, Seeing Triple. Yeah.
I was able to pull Seeing Triple, which is an effect that gives you 3/1/1 defenders, and I also had a card that said whenever a clone hits the field, I can buff another unit of my choice. And so I put a bunch of 1/1 defenders that turned into 2/2 defenders, which allowed me to stay alive a little bit longer. And had they come earlier, might have done some help. But like as you can see there, here, I think this is the turn that they come down. But as you can see there, Ali's Singularity Steward was already way too strong for me to deal with, and I didn't have a second genetic correction in my hand to do something about it. So
yeah, that feels like it's, it came, but it came a little like one turn too late. Like you said, that would have been really, really good on the prior turn for you before she had dealt that face damage.
And then another crucial mistake that I just made that you probably just saw was that I attacked into the unit that I genetically corrected on Ali's side of the board, and it actually just buffed all the rest of her units. And I was like, okay, well, now that's completely out of range.
Now it's over. Yeah.
I should probably have read the cards that we created before doing anything so stupid. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah, so Ali, you're kind of looking at what an optimal play might be. You know that there's the defenders out here, so you go Sacred Destruction. Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm recognizing that I'm very close to lethal here, and I just have to kill off all of the defenders before I can take that push. And you can see I'm at the Stewards at 6/6 right now. They're at 7, and then the Mercenary Gunslinger can deal 1 damage to any target. So I'm just like, as long as I get through,
you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's a nice combo there to end it. So yeah, you looked at what you had. You said, okay, I can use these cheaper ones to get rid of these defenders. I can keep my Steward to attack the face, and then finish it off with Gunslinger for the victory. So bravo, Ali, because you played that really well. I mean, it demonstrated a lot of comfortability with Shroud for being, was that your second or third game ever at that point?
Maybe third.
Third? Super impressive, play, I think, to manage. The early game, there was a lot of trading. You kind of gained an upper hand in the mid game, and had a nice combo and awareness of what was on your board to finish it off. I mean, Koji, how did you feel in the game? What was it like, playing her?
I was super excited. I mean, honestly, regardless of the outcome, to see somebody who obviously plays a lot of card games and understands card games kind of play parallel and take to it, and maybe ask some questions that were interesting, or just understand certain things without having to ask any questions it was perfect. It was like, this is exactly the game that I wanted, and I know that some people will say, hey, this is maybe a little bit too complex for a stone cold noob. And hopefully that our tutorials and some of the help that we have will kind of fix that. But like, I really wanted to make a card game for card gamers, and I feel like we've kind of gotten there.
Ali,
we feel like we've gotten there. So
maybe respond to that point, Ali. Like, what did you feel as though there was this complexity to it that was hard to grasp, or did it feel like after a couple matches you felt like, hey, there's so many elements here that I'm familiar with? You pointed out the one thing about the Paragons, which I do think is a good point, right? That's a thing that takes a lot of getting used to. But what was your overall impression of sort of the ease of picking it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think by the second and third game, I definitely picked up the flow. I feel like it's fairly intuitive. Like, if you've been playing card games, I think you're going to be just fine. And one of the coolest, I think, is just the mana system, banking. I mean, that's truly, I think, the coolest thing for me, because I've never played a card game that has this banking system. And I feel like, traditionally speaking, in card games, I don't know, like in Magic, if you get flooded or mana screwed, it feels really bad because you don't really get to play the game. And in something like Hearthstone, if you're just guaranteed getting a crystal every single turn, you lose out on that complexity. So now there's a whole new layer of like, oh man, I really want this card for later, but I don't want to screw myself now, so choosing to bank them. But yeah, like I said, I think once you get the flow of banking a card and playing everything, I mean, I had a great time. I'm really looking forward to playing the ladder and facing off against people. So yeah, I'm hyped.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments from our stream was basically at one point the realization that, like, okay, well, if you only have 2 or 3 cards in your hand and 2 of them help you right now, and one of them is like let's just say a big combo piece for your finisher or whatever, like, what do? Do you just not bank a card that turn, and are you just like behind on tempo going forward? And sometimes maybe that is the answer, but it's those kind of decisions that I think that's what made it exciting for me. That's kind of what unlocked the game of Parallel. We started with the sort of mana system, or I guess I started with the mana system and expanded from there.
I actually forgot to bank a card in one. I think it was the previous game that we played, and I was like, oh my god, shit, So I feel like that's gonna happen from time to time. So there's just complexities, that you need to pay attention to, and yeah, I really think the card game community is going to like it.
Yeah, Rebel, maybe what was your impression of this game? Kind of, her play, Koji's play, the matchup between those specific decks, and so what's your overall kind of feeling about how that game went? I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely super fun to watch. Really cool that Ali ended the game with 28 health.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's not too much to say about like the decks themselves, right? Because they're their starter decks are meant to be a bit more basic. And there's actually like, in some ways, that's maybe the purest form of how to play a card game. I used to do that with other card games, like with my younger brothers, just buy like starter decks at a shop, for like a physical card game and just play those against each other. And, having that feeling of 2 decks being relatively evenly matched and sort of just seeing what happens is really fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, just watching Ali pick it up so quick was really cool to watch, and sort of, validates some decisions in terms of the game design and stuff like that from Koji's team and all that. So just very cool to witness.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the game, it only feels like there was one turn where Ali wasn't really playing close to optimal combo, and it was just not playing brand. And you talked about that as like, it takes getting used to even think that that's the unit over there, because it's not in the place where the rest of the units are. So totally
in future, sorry to interrupt.
No,
in the future, things like that will be much more obvious. Like this is the type of feedback that is super useful to us at this stage, in terms of like, oh, I didn't realize that I could play that, in this moment, and then that's sort of our cue to say, oh, how can we make it easier for you to understand that that's something that you're able to do here? So
that's a great point. And I think it's important to underscore that for thinking about what the alpha is and what it's not, right? It is, the UX is nowhere near final. And something like the lack of a visual cue or some kind of stimulus to say the Paragon is playable now, might want to think about that. All that stuff is things that will be added and the things that we want feedback on, right? Where are you missing information? And those are the kind of things that we want to, polish up for beta, among others. But I think like the raw functionality of the game is one thing, but that's another great example of why we do an alpha, because that's really important information.
What did you guys think, Rich and Danny?
No, I think it looked amazing. And I was lucky enough to watch some of the other games as well. And just the UI and like UX of how cards snap around, and the banking and some of the other aspects are a bit newer to me. I'm not like the best TCG player. That'd be Austin in our group, who couldn't make it today, unfortunately. But it's like really interesting to see how things progress and how the different play styles that we've talked about over the past few weeks come to fruition and watch that play out, especially master card players like you guys.
Yeah, totally. I think like it or not, my expectations of what your product is probably the highest in the space or very close to it. And so I was very, very stoked. I loved it. I was just geeking out. I got to watch all 3 games and sit there and just listen to you banter, ask annoying questions while Ali's trying to play. But like really, I'm more of an RTS casual gamer, at this point. And this is making me. I'm gonna learn how to play a TCG because of this game. The interface looked really cool, and obviously keeping in mind the caveats of what Koji and Frank said about what the alpha is and what it's not. Right? I thought it was incredible. We see a lot of stuff, and we see a lot of bad stuff, and that is one of the best things I've seen. I'm really excited to kind of get in there and be someone's punching bag, Ali or Austin. I'm volunteering because I think it was great, and I'm excited. So great job.
Yeah, the best part about these kind of games, especially like deck building and strategy, and it's like you play against like an AI or a bot or something, and you're designing your deck and picking through some of these cards, and we can theory craft on here all day long. And then you face somebody and you're just like, all right, that was horrible. Like, I should not be theory crafting. Like, let me just pay Ali to make my deck for me.
It's totally different, right? It's like the difference between shooting jump shots in the gym and playing a game of basketball.
Yeah.
The scenarios that you're put in are dynamic and real, and there's a real person on the other end. And it was really cool to see, Ali go from theory crafting decks to playing games and winning games in a relatively short period of time. I would say impressively short period of time. And that kind of makes you feel like 2 things. One, she's pretty good at this, and the other, hey, there's actually something really substantive here that makes her feel like that inspires confidence in her. And the systems are designed well enough, even in this early stage, to allow you to learn pretty rapidly what's going on and feel engaging in the right ways and provide enough of the right information in terms of UX and stimulus that you're comfortable with it. Because I think that's what it comes down to, is like comfortability, familiarity. So that was really exciting to see. I think it, for me, gave a lot of validity to what's going on here, and I can't wait to scale that up with alpha and have hundreds up to over 1,000 more people have that experience firsthand. That, hey, Parallel is actually a really legit product, even in this early stage. And if I've played any card games ever, it's not going to take me too long to pick it up. I doubt the average person will be as fast as Ali was, but what I've always told people is like 5 games, you're going to be like, okay, I'm aware of what's happening. 10 games, I feel like I might not suck anymore, and 15 to 20 games, and you might be able to win. So Ali, I think, is a bit of an edge case here where she's, a lot more experienced than the average person. so it only took her 3. But I don't think it takes much, and that's the thing that's really exciting about it.
I think I'm still on game 10, so
perpetually
yeah.
game 10, right? Yeah.
I'm
That's
just
the problem.
excited for the community to get a hold of it, because with card games, like the hive mind is so powerful than just individual streamers or content creators or testers, whatever. Like you give you give the people all these cards and they come up with combos. Like it's just exciting, especially in the beginning stages of a game coming out too. It's like a glory period. So I'm super hyped for the alpha testers.
Yeah, I think there was a point in chat too about like certain unit to unit interaction, gunslinger 1 damage proc. I think because the stream and the speed that it may have been coming through, you might have missed some of that, what actually happens there. Also because it was Ali's POV, not Koji's, so you didn't see like the menu that pops up for him to select where the damage is dealt. I would also emphasize that in alpha, like there are a lot of potentially visual flourishes that would not be there, that would be in future versions. So it's a combination of like things that may not be there because they're intended not to be, and things that are there that you might not have seen. But rewatch the stream, and then again, we'll be very shortly actually having people in the alpha, and they can give feedback on that stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be adjustments to the audio and visual cues as well. Like there's a bunch of voice lines that we have yet to record, and some effects that we have yet to put in. And this is why that I just want to like stress. I can't stress enough that this is an alpha, and anything you see, like, it's definitely not going to be the final product. So have fun with it, but don't let it be your sort of judge of the game as a whole.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hey guys, I know we're wrapping up and this has been exciting. Maybe just like some admin for everyone. I know I saw a tweet about there's 3 waves of the alpha, and then there's like an open for the alpha. Maybe like a little bit like timeline on what you're expecting here from the alpha, and then so maybe people can kind of understand when they'll get more broad access potentially.
Okay, that's a good question. So basically, I can outline how the alpha is going to work. We have 3 waves. Wave 1 is obviously going to be the first week, and then wave 2 the second week, and wave 3 the third week. And for the most part, if you are part of wave 1, after that week is up, you'll no longer have access, and then the next wave will come in. There is again a bit of a caveat to that. I don't know what I can say and can't say, but some people will be moving on, and you'll have a chance to sort of earn your opportunity to move on if you're a part of wave 1. But regardless, once all 3 waves have passed, there'll be a weekend where we'll open it up to anyone who has alpha access for a sort of free-for-all ladder climb sort of scenario. And there's probably going to be some fun stuff given away for people who go absolutely insane on that weekend. So get your reps in while you can. Outside of that, when can people get wider access? Well, we are going to have a beta once we collect the data from the alpha, incorporate some of that data, and then build out some of the other game modes and other things that need to be part of a fully functioning game. And then we'll open it up to beta. I don't know if we've talked about those timelines yet, so I'm not going to say anything. But if you missed out on the alpha period, you will have more of an opportunity in beta. You know what? And I'm just going to do something. This is sort of no one knows it's happening yet, but I'm going to say if you watch our next stream, which will probably be part of while wave 1 is happening, why don't we just say one person watching next week's stream will win access to wave 2 if you don't already have access. Let's do that.
Wow.
I think that'd be fun. So
yeah, why not?
There you go.
There you go. That's a really cool. I know there's some people who would kill for that opportunity, so that's going to be pretty sick. Yeah, and I we tried to get people in alpha as best that we could while sort of maintaining the integrity of the process. I learned a lot about what an alpha is supposed to be from people who are more experienced, during this. Because on the one hand, you want to get everybody in who's been begging you for, however long. But on the other hand, it's a very important testing period with specific kinds of feedback that are needed. And so there has to be structure. We have to keep the numbers limited. We have to cycle people in and out. These are all things that it's not like we want to do them. We just have to do them that way. But beta will be substantially more open, and people who are registering for early access and didn't get into alpha are going to be the very top of the list to be selected for beta. So, and the beta numbers will be substantially larger than what we have in alpha. So, I would say if you don't happen to make it into alpha one way or another, like Koji said, don't despair. It's not going to be too much longer until we're in beta, and the beta product will be a substantially better product anyway. So, but yeah, that's awesome. So next stream, you got a chance. If you didn't happen to make it in, then we will see you there. And
Awesome.
Augencore, that's right. We're talking about Augencore. Someone's going to say we saved the best for last. I'm going to disagree with you preemptively. But no, I think Augencore. We should get CL on here. I feel like we have to get the main Augen man himself on here. But they've come a long way. I mean,
I will say,
Meta beat my ass with Augencore quite recently. It was
when Ali and I played. The first game we played I was playing Augencore, and it was significantly better for me. So who knows? Maybe I'm turning a corner and becoming more of an Augen player.
Yeah. Well, I mean I feel like in the very early testing, they were lower in the pack, and now they're much higher in the pack. It's a lot of consistent pressure. Salvage is super interesting. Sure. Yeah. So they got a lot of ways that they can hurt you. And I don't enjoy playing against them nearly as much as I used to. So it'll be a fun one for sure.
Real quick, I tweeted yesterday that the first person to message me about buffing or nerfing certain cards after access to the alpha is given will be banned for the game for life. That was not a joke. I'm dead serious. Don't tell me which cards in specific need to be buffed. But I want to hear the rest of your feedback. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll just buff Ali as a whole for the next match.
There we go.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for letting us get in there, and we're excited to watch Ali get in there and be able to play the game and show everybody
and win, destroy me,
and whether
emasculate me.
You won
entire parallel audience.
Right? We're still 1-1 right now.
I mean, I don't know if there's video evidence of it. I can claim whatever I want. I won 100 previous games before that one.
There you go. Yeah. Speaking of video evidence, I think we'll find a way to get this out in like HD format. So, if people had issues with the stream, I know that like my quality comes through fine. Some people's doesn't. So I know that if there was, any issues with connectivity, rewatching the stream should be better, but we can actually upload like a version of this that's, crispy. So
absolutely. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks for tuning in, and come by next week for your chance at some gameplay.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, everyone.